In the previous video, we have already discussed about IAM policies in depth. We have seen the structure of an IAM policy, right? We have gone through that JSON document and see the core property of IAM policy, that is statement, and what are the fields inside the statement, right? So all these things we have discussed in theoretically. Now we are going to do hands-on on this topic. Okay. To continue with this topic, first I'm going to open my AWS console, which was already opened, and right, I'm going to IAM. So if IAM is not listed here in this recently visited tab page, right, then you go to search and type IAM. The services, the top one is IAM, right, and you can open IAM like this also. So once you open the IAM dashboard, right, identity and access management, you can see here I have user groups, users, roles, and all different information available here. I'm going to user groups. If you observe here, I have two groups. One is admin, one is developer. Okay, and inside the developers, I have a user called Aditya. And if I open this user, you can see the summary of this user and also what are the permissions which are attached to this user. So for this user, we have attached a policy called administrator access. That means this user have all the access because it's an admin access, right? So we'll do one thing. We'll open one more AWS console with the credentials of this user and we'll play with this user now, right? By turning off permission, turning on permission, so that you will get how to add permissions to a particular user. Okay, now I'm going to minimize this to left side and I will open one more console, and this time I logged in with a user called Aditya. So the same user I have logged in here on the right side. Okay, now if you see this user is having administrator permissions, right? Administrator permission policies which we attached, and if you see this is the policy attached. That means we are allowing all the actions on all the resources. So any resource which we attach this policy should be allowed to do any action on all the resources. So that's the meaning. So we will discuss about this policy in depth. Now this guy is having administrative access. The user Aditya is having administrator access. Now he belongs to a group called developers, and for the developers group we attach this policy. So that's the reason this administrator policies came to the user through group developers, came to the user through this group developers. Okay, so we will do one thing. First we'll remove this Aditya from the group. Okay, since this administrator access is coming from the group, if we remove this guy, this Aditya from the group, we'll see whether he was able to access this any resource, right? So first, from this user perspective also, we'll open IAM. Okay, and so this is users view, right? This is users view, and you can see this user. Even Aditya also able to see the users within the IAM, so you can able to list the users. So that since he have administrative access, he can able to see that. Now we'll remove that access and see. So you can remove that access from the groups or directly from here, right? I have selected this policy and I'm going to remove. So remove user from group developers. So if we remove access, since this access is attached to group developers, so if we remove, automatically the user also removed from the group. That is fine. I'm clicking on remove and it got removed. Now on the left hand side, we logged in with Aditya, right? And he can able to view these users. Now since you don't have any administrator permissions because we removed, we'll see whether you can able to access these users again, right? So for that I will refresh this page, and if you see here, now it is saying access denied. Why? Because you don't have permissions to do IAM list users, because you have already removed that administrative access, where administrative access should have all the resources related, all API calls. Here the API call is IAM list user, but if I give admin access, admin permission or admin policy, then it will have all the API calls in the AWS account. So that's the advantage of using admin permissions. But since we removed, this user Aditya won't be able to access the user, won't be able to list the users because access denied. Okay, now we'll see how to attach an inline policy. So earlier we have attached a policy through a group, right? Now we'll see how to attach a policy inline, right? Here you can see in the user section, you can have an option to add permissions or create inline policy. So create inline policies, you can create your own policy, and add permissions, you can add existing permissions. You can use existing policies to attach to this user. So we'll go with add permissions. So if I click on add permissions, right, it's opened three things. It's opened this page, and here you have permissions options. You can add user to a group. So if I add user to admin group or developers group, you will get the administrator access. So these are the policies attached to him, admin and developer. And copy permissions, you can copy permissions from an existing user. For example, here you have a user named Kalyani, which she is having admin group related attached permissions, or you can attach permissions directly. So we'll go with attach permissions directly. Okay, and since we are doing IAM read, so we'll check for IAM read only access. Okay, so IAM read only access will provide only read only access to the IAM service. So for Aditya, we're attaching this so that he can able to list at least the users within the IAM. So that's the intention of adding this policy, and we'll see how this policy look like, right? If I click on this toggle button, right, you can able to see an policy, and this policy is similar to the policy which we discussed earlier. You can see version statement. We know the statement is the core component, core property we are interested in. Here we are allowing all these actions: generate credential report, generate service last access details, all get, all list, right? IAM get star. So all the get APIs, all the list APIs, and also some stimulate custom policy, stimulate principal policy. So these are all actions we are allowing, right, on all the resources. If I say star for all the resources, can able to do all these actions. So any user who is having access, right, who is having this policy attached, he can able to perform all these actions on all the resources. But these APIs are only present in IAM, so you can able to execute these APIs on IAM. Okay, so now I'm going to select this and click on next. So here we got an review page where it is showing the user details and also the permission summary. So you can see the summary, and you can click on add permissions. So the permissions got added to our user Aditya. Now this permission is a directly added permission, right? Attached via directly, not through a group. Okay. For your better understanding, I will open this policy. So if we click on this policy, the policy itself will be opened in a separate tab. And if you see here in the permission section, right, you have two options: summary, JSON. JSON we have already seen. We'll see the summary section. So summary section is human readable form instead of the JSON form. So if you see this human readable form, here we attached one service of 443 service. So In AWS, you have 443 service, and this number will change based on the AWS updates. So currently we are attached a permission to only one service, that is IAM service, where you are giving only access to list and read, full list and limited read for all the resources, and there is no conditions we attached here. Okay, and if you go to JSON view, you can able to see what are the actions. Actions are nothing but the API calls. Okay, now going back to our IAM user, right? Since he got IAM read-only access which was attached to the Aditya, we'll see whether he can able to list now the users within the IAM. So in this page again, I'm going to refresh and we'll see whether he is able to access the list of users. Yes, he can able to access the list of users from IAM, right? You can able to see here, right? He can able to see Aditya and Kalyani, two users. So this is how you can attach a policy to your user, and this is how the policies will work. Now we'll see how to attach an inline policy to the user. Okay, and inline policy is, as I mentioned earlier, is a policy which was specific to a particular user only. So here, right, in the policies, we have different types of policies, right? Group level policies, user level policies, and multiple policies. Now we'll see all these levels here. First, I'm going to policies. So here you can able to see already some policies was created by the AWS to you. So we can reuse these policies. And if you want to create your own policy, you can do that. So here you can able to see the create policy. You can reuse, most of the times you can reuse the existing policy. But if you have your custom logic or custom use case, right? In that case, you can go and create your policy. Now you can create your own policy also. So that is what we are going to do. That is inline policy, right? So I have an use case where my service has to have some permissions and those permissions are not listed here. Even though AWS provided few policies on the fly and these policies are not fulfilling my business need or my use case. So in that case, we can create our own policies. And how can we do that? By using this create policy option. So we can create our own policy and attach permissions based on our use case. So click on this create policy button and this will open this page. Here you can able to specify the permissions. And here also you will get a policy editor. In this policy editor, you have two options. One is visual and another one is JSON. Okay, so we'll do one thing. We'll use both of them and create our own policy. So in JSON, right, you can select any service here. For example, if you need API gateway, right, if you want your users to access API gateway, then select API gateway resource or EC2 resource, Lambda resource, whatever the resource you want. And here you can able to define the actions, right? The actions are important, no? Which action we can perform on that API gateway service. So I would say we will give only read-only access currently. So access level read, you will have read or write also. You have permissions also. I selected only read-only access. And if you see here, action has been added in the action array. And similarly, if I scroll down, right, you will have an option to add resource. So we can add resource also. So currently the service which we selected is AWS Gateway only, and to which resource this policy is applicable, right? So better you have different types of resources available here. So here we are going to select all resources. So click on add resource. If I click on add all resources, this will become star. So any resource which which was attached this policy can perform this action on API gateway. So that's the meaning of this particular policy. Okay, we have already used and added API gateway. Similarly, in the visual section also, you can see what were the actions attached and you can add more permissions through visually, right? Here you can able to select your service. For example, I'm going to select S3. Okay, and here in the visual it will show what are the permissions, I mean API calls available for S3, right? It has list 16 APIs available, for read 61 available. So we'll go to read and you can select all the read actions. Or you can do one thing, you can select a specific API you want, right? Uh, you want only the object. You are able to get an object. That's it, right? That is one permission. So we added that permissions. And if I click this thing, and you can able to specify a particular resource. So here also visually we can specify resource, or otherwise you can select all. So if you select all for any resource, this policy attached, right, can able to access S3 read only, and also can able to access AWS gateway read only. And click on next. And if you see below, this policy should allow these three actions, and you can give the policy name like dev policy for test. We can give some description and some tags. So those are optional, and click on next to create the policy. Sorry, click on create policy to create the policy. Now the policy has been created and we'll check whether policy created or not. So search for dev. Yeah, the policy has been created here, and this is our policies JSON. We can able to access S3 and we can able to get our read API gateway, right? So this is the policy which we created using the visual editor. Now go to the user section, go to Aditya and add that permission to him. So add permissions and attach policies directly and select dev policy. Okay, so that permission also we attach to the user Aditya. So you can able to see the user Aditya has attached two policies. One is the customer managed, that means we have created. One is the AWS managed, that is created by the AWS, and these are attached via directly. So we directly attach to the users. Now we can add this user to group, right? Earlier Aditya is a part of developers group, and we'll again add him to the developers group. If you want, you can add to admin group also. So as we discussed earlier, a user can be present in multiple groups. So currently I'm adding him to a developers group alone, and if we see permissions now, he is going to have multiple. So here the administrator access he got from developers, and dev policy for test is a custom policy which we created and directly attached to the user. This is inline policy. And IAM read only access which was managed by the AWS, which was already available, we are reusing to this particular user. So like this, he inherited all these permissions from different sources, right? So we have already discussed in our theory section, right? How a particular user inherit different permissions from different sources. Here he got permission from group, from inline, uh, uh, from group, and from directly attached, right, inline policy, and also the customer, and also the AWS managed policies. So this is how we can attach policies to a user. Okay, and going back here and refreshing, you can able to access not only read here, since we are reading, you can able to create, because you have administrative access from the developers group, so that you can able to create a user also. I'm not creating, but I'm just saying. Okay, so this is how you will create an IAM policies, attach permissions to it, and applying permissions are the very important thing, right? Here if you observe, I have given IAM read only and also administrative access, which is not making sense, because if he has administrator access, then You don't need these two policies. So you have to remove the administrator access. Since he belongs to developers, you have to give only permissions which he required. Don't give administrator access to all the users. Only the admins will get the administrator access and the developers will get the access which they need. That's it. Least privilege principle we need to follow when you are using or giving permissions to users. Okay. I hope you understand clearly about the IAM policies. And before wrapping up this session, we'll clean this. Okay. So we'll go to user groups and we'll delete these groups. Whatever the groups was created, so those are not required. So first we'll remove the unnecessary permissions from this user Aditya. So I'm going to keep him in the developers group. So I will remove these two inline policies which attached, right, which are not required because he's anyway having the administrator access, and have created an admin group Kalyani, and this is the admin group and she is having administrator access. That is fine. And if you don't want these users, you can delete these users. If you created any user, just clean those users. Okay. So currently these two users are required for me, so I am keeping them. But if you are following along with me and created some users, delete the users and delete the inline policies which you created also. If you don't need, or if you need, you can keep. So here I created a dev policy for test, right? So I'm going to delete this policy. So you can do the same. If you created any test policy, you can delete that policy. Yeah, it's deleting. Yeah, that's it. Thanks for watching my videos. If you like my video, like, share and subscribe, and let me know in the comment section if you want to learn more topics. Thank you. Bye.